So I just wanted to get like a couple of folks together so we can talk about whatever. And try to make this like a normal thing, like, you know, just kind of like the normal chats that we do. It's just that I'm going to put this on YouTube and it's going to be put up to scrutiny of others, and they're going to listen to you and be like, oh my God, who is this person, and all that stuff. So not to make you too self-conscious, but it's not like you guys haven't been on any videos before.
Sounds fabulous.
It'll be fantastic, actually. So anyway, quick ice break. Jim, you go first. Just tell us who you are, who you roll, and your least favorite boss in BoDA.
My name is Trucker Jim. I'm an enhancement shaman. I mean, I started playing this game back in D, but that account didn't go very far. I had high school doing that. But I came back in Warlords of Draenor at the very beginning, basically end of Mr. Pandaria. And I've been playing since, with the exception of a 8-month hiatus at the end of Warlords of Draenor. But
least favorite boss, Jim.
Oh, in BoDA, I'd have to say Conclave.
Go ahead, Nelia.
I am Nelia. I am a Blood Elf monk. Least favorite boss. Ooh. The council one, I think.
Oh, so you didn't like council either?
No.
I'm Soul, I'm nobody. My least favorite boss. I might have to get back to you on that because I didn't think about that at all, and I feel bad because I got to moderate and control the pace of the conversation. I don't know, like my least favorite boss. I mean, there were bosses that were like not very interesting. Like the first boss was boring. Like we made it boring. It's funny how at first, you know, how when we were first doing that heroic champ dude, and Shad and I were trying to do the whole switch thing, and it was disastrous. But then when we did the 3 tank thing, then it became really trivial. That, I guess, was really boring. But I don't know.
I agree.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, dude? Cool, ice break. Say who you are, your role, and your least favorite boss in BoDA.
Hello, I'm Senjien or Boners, and I am a DPS druid for the guild. And probably for me, the least favorite fight is going to be Opulence.
So the others, they're saying that Conclave was like their least favorite. What do you think about that one?
I don't know, I felt like Conclave was one of the more engaging fights. I mean, I know a lot of mechanics happened and things got hectic, but I felt like we were always doing something and it changed like the type of mechanic that each one of the Loa had.
I think in hindsight, like during progression, Conclave was my least favorite because for me personally, I was failing at it. Like I am pretty certain that I was holding the group back because I was just failing to live through the mechanics. I was like, all right, just get through this, and then boom, dead. I'm like, oh shit, dude. And I think it was coming to the point where I'm like, I think I seriously like actually don't have the gear for this thing, which is weird because I'm usually accustomed to having a low bar. It's like, okay, if I have like this minimal amount of gear, I'll be able to live through everything. But in that case, like stuff was just hitting so damn hard. And it's not like the healers weren't trying. Like I remember they were using all their cooldowns and all the other crazy shit on me, and it just wouldn't do it. But then afterwards, you know, once I got into the groove of things, it's one of my favorites because I feel the most. Just like what you were saying, Senjien, I feel the most engaged with that fight. But like Nelia, as a healer, what made that hard?
It's just an insane amount of damage all the time. And if the timers were off, it was even worse.
That's right. So like Nelia, she was doing most of the work when it came to like, especially at the very beginning. You were like the gatekeeper for when we should, or if we should, kill that gonk That's the first guy, right? If we should take him out
Yeah,
first
that's
before the wind phase, because otherwise we'll have too much dot damage going out and things like that. And I know that that's a pretty focal point of the fight, that it's all about the timing of abilities. If you're off, it like totally screws you. Jim, how come that was your least favorite fight?
I think it was timing. Honestly, I really hate the final part with Akunda, where it feels like I feel very vulnerable when there's the whole mind wipe and you don't have any abilities. It doesn't even keep me on my feet. It just makes me feel vulnerable.
I don't know, mind wipe would hit like what, 2 or 3 targets at a time every time that thing went out, and all that.
3.
And then you would just cleanse it, right? Because I don't. There's a lot of that particular fight that I'm not super on top of.
Yeah, we would have to cleanse, but by that point we were all like scraping the barrel, so sometimes we wouldn't be able to because we didn't have the mana.
Yeah, so I know that's why, like, for the most part, like, once I felt like, okay, I can survive now, I can at least free up some mana from the healers so that they can, like, cleanse and do that sort of stuff without having to worry too much. Or I can help with raptors and things like that. Like, once I was able to get, like, those little bits of gear and, like, traits and stuff, then I felt pretty cool. But what were you guys' favorite bosses? Nelia, go first.
I like opulence because I don't know, it's not very healing intensive, so you have to like mess around and hit the bosses and stuff.
Jim?
I'd have to say Mekator. Because, I mean, so other bosses, I mean, raiding is, I know it's all about shared responsibility, and sometimes you have to depend on other people. But what I really like about Mekator is that it's a lot on checking yourself. And sometimes somebody else makes a mistake, but it's on them too. So what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, oddly enough, I really like Mekator.
Senjien?
So I'm gonna have to say Mechatork as well, but it's more for, yes, the mechanics were very interesting and fun, but also at an RP level, it had one of the more interesting like dialogues and like combat texts while we were like fighting. The things that were going on in the background and beforehand, it all kind of like combined into one to make it like a really interesting little. Plus, it drops them out.
It's interesting you bring up the whole RP part. I mean, that's I do still think that Conclave is my favorite fight. Mostly, not even so much from like the mechanics and how all that stuff worked, but it's more like the story of how we got through. Because, like I said, that was like the biggest struggle for me as a tank. And once I got through, then overcoming challenges like that feels really good. And if I can do so, the times where I can come through like that and come out on top and know that I made a difference like that, even though it was because I was getting my ass beat before that, it still felt good. But Megatork's interesting because of what you said. It's a Lord, because if you think about it, we're fighting like right near the dock. It's like a place that we normally like run through when we're going over to like either the flight point, or if we're going over to like that Paku totem if we want to get teleported back up to the seal. But then nope, right now it's a fucking battlefield and all that. So it had that whole Siege of Orgrimmar feel. I thought that was really cool.
True, and Siege of Orgrimmar is one of my favorite raids ever. So, like, I like the whole when they take our open world and kind of create a raid around it. It makes it feel more interesting and engaging too.
I
agree on that. It's kind of because that whole thing about raids being these enclosed areas, like Uldir. Take Uldir for example. It's a place when you start in Uldir, you've never entered Uldir. It's the first time you're entering. But for BoDA, it's especially as a Horde player, it's the place you've been enjoying for the past few months.
No, I think Jim has a point there. So like as Horde players, since we've been through like here the Battle of Dazar'alor, and we've been through Siege of Orgrimmar, I don't aside from maybe Senjien, like Nelia and Jim, I don't think I really know like just how much you guys care about lore. Because I mean, I don't know if you like look at forums and things like that, but there's so many people that say that talk about, you know, the lore bias, horde bias, that sort of thing, fuck Sylvanas and that sort of stuff. Like, are you guys invested into that emotionally at all?
I'll have to say I'm invested on it like somebody would be invested in a sports team. Like, I want my people to succeed, and it feels good when they succeed. But also, like, there's always the chance, understanding there's always the chance, in any, as in with any narrative, that the people you want to succeed won't.
Nelia?
I am not real into the lore. I mean, I enjoy it, but I don't go like searching for it and stuff.
Senjin, what do you got to say about it?
Well, you know me, man. I am really invested in the lore, and
Talanji.
yes, I've been a big fan of Talanji since the beginning of the expansion, and as well as most of the guild knows. But I mean, any chance to enrich the lore or the stories of some of my favorite characters, I'm gonna enjoy the content. Really, it's just, I don't know. It's like sometimes it hasn't always paid off. Like the Illidan, like for like let's say, sorry for the throwback, but back in Antor's Burning Throne, like to bring Illidan throughout the entire expansion, and then at the end of the expansion, to be like, well, we're putting him back on the shelf, and he's disappearing and things like that. Like, I don't want that to be the case this expansion. Like, they're doing so much character building for Talanji. I hope that it's not gonna go to the wayside in the end.
I agree on that.
Go ahead, Jim.
I agree on that. I too think Talanji's an amazing character. I was really sad when I found out we had to kill Rosticon because I really liked him as well. But I mean, it's definitely like there are all these characters you don't like for example, Thalyssra from Legion. She played a huge role, and she's kind of fallen by the wayside in BFA. I mean, you could kind of argue that maybe her story's done, but that's another character I'd like to see more.
You know, actually, I am pretty disappointed by the. She's just underutilized because she commands what seems to be like the biggest city on Azeroth. Like, there's the night. Suramar City ain't no small place. That's like hella people. It has infrastructure. It's got like a whole lot of stuff going for it, but it just doesn't seem to be like anything that's like I think we see Thalyssra in the intro experience when you're saving Talanji for the first time, and she's just like a crony. She is just like, oh, I'm a faction leader. I'm a leader of this giant city, but no, I'm going to tag along and infiltrate Stormwind and do some of this dirty work and all that. Like, that didn't seem right. And it's kind of in contrast to some of the other faction characters that have been introduced over time, like the goblins, the blood elves, and so on and so forth. Who slowly they've been building up story, and they've become much more interesting characters with Gallywix and Lorthamar being able to flesh out. But Thalyssra seems kind of wasted at the moment, and I'm gonna hold my breath on. I forgot her name. Shit, Gaera. You know, the Maghar orc lady, the really tough chick. Oh man, her voice is awesome. I gotta say,
Female Thrall.
Thralla?
Yeah, Thrall's sister from another universe.
No, she's badass. I want to see more of her. So I'm interested to see, like, if they... I'll be upset if they just kind of leave her alone. Like, I want to see her have a future, like, with... Not just with the Maghar that she brought with her, but, like, with the rest of the orcs. I want to see... Because we haven't... Well, something that I kind of expect at some point is, like, tension between the Maghar and the other orcs. Because, like, the Maghar... It's like, oh, we're uncorrupted. We're clean and all that shit. You guys are dirty little green people and stuff. And I want to see if anything comes out of that.
I don't see it happening because of the way we've rescued the Magcar. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, that, you know, that makes that makes a good point. But I do
Yeah.
want to see how, maybe not the general population, but I want to see Garrett talk with folks like Thrall or Sarfang and see just what kind of dynamics come out of that, if anything.
Yeah, well, I think a Thrall's dynamic with Gaera would probably be the most interesting in my opinion, because they had the same parents. I mean, from different timelines, of course, but well, there's Thrall's interaction with that timeline's Duratan. It's just kind of interesting to see. Yeah,
I don't know. Like, I have a feeling that's. I don't know if there would be much of that relationship because they wouldn't really be relatable. It's like, yeah, you know, I guess technically we have the same dad, but I don't know your dad. My dad's, you know, Thrall's like, I don't know your dad really. I just kind of know what it just gives me an idea of what he's like, but his real dad's already dead and all that. So
that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I meant to say, like, not really comparative, but how they're two different characters. It's not like they're gonna reminisce about stories of Duratan. That would be, for all, basically pretty dull. But like how because we're seeing the Duran are basically 30 years, the one after WoD for them. So the time it was a pretty big divergence. And I'm just saying, like, how their personalities are completely different.
I think that I don't know, at least at the moment, I just see them as two completely different people. Like, screw the relationship between, like, the dad and whatnot. She's the leader of the Magcar. He's a former war chief. I think that's where they're, I think that's where they're going to find themselves to be relatable. Not so much with their original parentage and all that stuff.
Fair enough.
But let me switch back to, like, let me just get into the meat of things. Like, for you guys, how are you guys feeling about this expansion and Blizzard and all that stuff? Like, are you guys okay with how things are at the moment? And like, do you think that this has really much of anything to do with PoW? Because I know that I talk a lot about how, oh, you know, us as a guild, there's a lot of stuff that we don't have to worry about because we're in like a decently, you know, we're in a decently stable guild that doesn't have to worry about certain things. But yeah, in general, what do you guys think of how the expansion's going right now?
I mean, I can take this first.
Go for it.
I actually think that because of how we are, it doesn't affect us the same way it affects the majority of the player base. But I will say that I have issues with how our player progression is. Like, I'm not a fan of how crappy it felt hitting max level and to feel like, I didn't gain anything. I lost everything. And it just made me feel like I'm not leveling up, even though I'm leveling up, you know? It's like character regression instead of progression. And Legion did it so well that it was a shock into the system to see BFA just kind of go off in the completely like opposite direction, especially with how great they did with class like differences. Like, you know how I play. I played every class. I leveled every class in Legion, and in BFA I just have not felt the drive to do that. I mean, I have pretty much done it now, but nowhere near as quickly as I did in Legion.
I would agree. I don't know what it is with leveling, but it seems to take forever and it is not enjoyable after the first time. I've gotten some ults up, but yeah. And reaching max level, I totally agree on that. I don't know. It's like, oh, you're max level, everything hurts more, and you don't do any better.
But do you think now that's mostly not I don't have a great perspective on it. Like I've leveled what, Warlock, Mage, Hunter, some other stuff. But at least when I was doing it, like my ults are shit. My ults are really crappy, so I didn't really feel like I was losing anything because I didn't have legendaries. I didn't have raid gear. I didn't have much of anything. So I guess I can see a player who didn't play through Legion. They're gonna level through, get through to get their character into BFA content and get into that stuff, and they're not gonna notice a damn thing. And that's kind of part of the formula. It's like, okay, we can skip through all this old shit, but by the time you get into the current content, that's when you get some of the gimmicky stuff, the expansion features and stuff like that, and then hopefully there's a little bit to enjoy. But I do admit that Azeroth gear is soft. It's soft. It doesn't feel impactful. So I get it when people are like, I don't feel motivated to work on my character because there's not a lot that you need to work on except for acquiring that gear. But unfortunately, like in my opinion at least, Azeroth traits are soft. They just don't they don't make or break my character.
I like to the way you were saying it, let's say they didn't play, you're saying for the example that you didn't play through Legion. But even at that, so let's say, when was the last time your character gained anything then?
No, I get you there.
Since the end of MOP.
Yeah, I definitely get you there. Because there are things that we used to get that we don't anymore. Warlord perks, not a thing. Artifact weapons, not a thing. So there's that gap that I know that I haven't experienced yet, because I'm finally trying to level my Zandalari troll person. So I'm gonna finally get an idea of how that feels, because I'm not sure. I only know what I've heard. So that remains to be seen.
My biggest complaint is that you're playing through the story, like. As a player, the timeline that you're playing through, you're not getting to experience it the way you should throughout a story, and if that makes sense. Like, we player progressed through Legion's story, obtaining our artifact, unlocking it, feeding power into our artifact, slowly getting stronger to defeat the Legion, and then finally, giving up our power of our artifact so that way we could, destroy the Sword of Sargeras. Like, you lose even, and all that from an RP perspective for a player who's playing through it for the first time. You don't even get to feel that part of the gameplay,
I do. It makes me wonder though, because that sort of experience, at least when I think about it just now, I can't quite see an experience where I, as a player, want to get through and I want to play BFA content. Should I need to go through that entire arc of, getting the artifact weapon, powering it up, and going through that experience before I get into the current content? Or do I want to just kind of rush through?
Well, think of it through the concept of a different game. If I'm playing through, like, let's say Destiny, I can choose the option to skip through all this cutscenes and stuff to get right to the gameplay, rather than not having the option to do it. So, like, you're not even giving people in WoW the option to play through that. You're just taking away that experience without them even getting a choice. Because, you see it both ways. Yeah, I want to skip this content and get right to the game. That's fine. You're automatically given that choice. But what about the people that want to have that experience? They don't get the choice to have that experience.
So I admit that I'm not on top of it. Like, so when you get to Legion content, do you even get a quest to get your artifact weapon at all?
You do get the quest to do the artifact weapon, but you don't get anything else after that. Like, you don't get the artifact the way you did.
Can you even do like the Order Hall campaign, the class campaign, and all that stuff?
Oh, that I'm not sure because I did all the Order Hall campaigns when it was like I did the Order Hall campaigns for every class for every stage that the expansion was releasing it as current content rather than like jumping ahead at the end of the expansion like a lot of people. So that part I'm not sure of. I'm pretty sure you can do the campaign, but it's been trivialized for the most part. Like,
Yeah. Sure. Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure that you can do the campaign because I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It's like you go through a certain number of experiences. You pretty much have to introduce yourself into the order hall before you even get like the mission table or like the scouting map to have you go to like the different zones. It's not like you just go down there and start grinding mobs. I mean, you can technically. You can just jump off a Dalaran, swim to shore, and be like, all right, mobs, let's do this, and just like pull everything and grind your way to max level that way. But that's kind of a dumb idea. So I'm gonna presume that you can at least do like the questing and all that. But yeah, like I'm curious what the logic is there behind. I don't know. It feels like it was Blizzard's fault. There are obviously things that I think are their fault, but do you think it was a bad thing for them to give us something so heavy and epic as the artifact weapon in the first place?
no, I don't think it is. Like honestly, I don't think it was bad because what it shows us as players is like this is what we can do. Like we can do this for you in an expansion, but then you see an expansion like BFA, and it's like, where did that all go? It's more like we're gonna do these things to make it easier on us, to make us able to tweak the game like at a slower pace. Let's slow down the game so that way the longevity of the game. So they're thinking of it more at a development level, like how they can make it easier to the game developers rather than what makes the game actually fun, because they've shown us that they can create an expansion with all these types of things, and then they go and they do what they did with BFA, and it's like, what happened? And also, I feel like it just, I don't know, man. I just feel like they just missed the mark with BFA because they gave us so much in Legion and they showed us what we can do. And I feel like in BFA, they just tried to reinvent some things that just didn't need to be reinvented.
But that was kind of the point that I was trying to get to as well. Like with them giving us something so heavy and epic as the artifact weapons, how do you? I guess the challenge there. I'm not looking for serious answers because we're not developers. We're just fans trying to think things through. But it's like, how do you come back from that, or how do you proceed, knowing that you have like this legendary or this artifact weapon that's of this legendary status and it's dope and it does all these cool things. How do we go on with not having it anymore?
Well, I think it was not necessarily a bad thing to have, but a bit short-sighted to say these artifacts being a feature of this expansion, and this expansion will, for all intents and purposes, have an expiration date, or a sell-by date, whatever you want to say. It was short-sighted to like have that power kind of going into it knowing that it's going to go away one way.
I think they should have just expanded, like you discovered more knowledge about your artifact and gained even more power. Certainly not this Azerite trait gear, because, wow, that was a lift.
I just don't like getting things taken away or losing the knowledge. Like, so like, think of it as like I shouldn't forget how to do things that I have already learned how to do. If that, like, if a weapon was giving me that power, sure, fine, whatever. But there's like spells and abilities that I shouldn't get those taken away from me. I don't know. That's just how I feel.
No, I agree too. Like that's been like one of the big pushes with the systems and feedback content videos that I've been doing, where I talk about how I get that there shouldn't be bloat, or I get that there should be like minimal bloat, that players shouldn't feel too overwhelmed with too many things to press, because then we're going to have people simming abilities too. And that's, and it's already bad enough that we're simming gear. It's like, okay, am I going to use, greater pyroblast, pyroblast, in what order, and this and that sort of thing. And it's going to be like, in my opinion, too complicated and too unfun. But I haven't been a fan of me. I said this in some video earlier where, in Warlords, I can throw my Avenger Shield and I can hit 5 targets. And that was just given to me as I was loving it. I was like, fuck yeah, awesome. And then in Legion, it went away. But I can get it again if I get these legendary legs. I'm like, okay, fuck, fine. I'll go ahead and get these legs. Cool, I got the legs. Yeah, I feel awesome again. And then it got taken away again because the legendary's gone. And now here it is in BFA, but it splits into a talent and an Azerite trait. So it's like, okay, this is what it takes in order to do it. And I'm not too fond. I don't mind the idea of borrowed powers. I don't mind the idea of me picking up the Truth Guard or Asherbringer or whatever. And it's like, cool, holding this weapon, it imbues me with the power to do Wake of Ashes and other cool paladin shit. But when I put it down, I no longer have access to that sort of thing. And I'm totally okay with that. The thing is, though, it's been too heavy-handed. It's leaned far too much in that direction where in Warlord stuff was taken away. In Legion stuff was taken away. In BFA, in 8.2, when we get this neck thing and we get cool passives and active abilities or whatever, it's gonna feel cool, but then there's a chance that it might get taken away too. And that's gonna be a really, really shitty feeling. And I'm curious to see or to know if Blizzard knows that's going to happen and if they're going to be proactive about it. Like, whatever they give us, they need to be prepared to let us keep these things at this point, because I don't think players will tolerate having something given to us and lost again, especially because this is 8.2. We're in the middle of the expansion and you're going to give us something. What are they going to do afterwards? So
yeah, so I don't know if you are aware of an interview that he did like just recently, where he actually
I have a Q&A thing that's like almost ready to go. I watched it, yeah. Okay. or I read it.
Okay, all right. From what I like, it seems like they're trying. Like, I'm not going to say that they're not going to do it, but it seems like that's where they're trying to head towards, is like not doing that anymore, where they drip us this power gains and then they take it away. I'm hoping that they kind of like actually like follow that path, but who knows?
They I don't have the exact quote on me, but it was something along the lines of they're willing to accept that things can get messy down the road, but if it's fun, then cool, it's fun. The system that I was hoping for was something that's kind of similar to Diablo 3, because I can't think of any other system off the top of my head that works the same way, but you're basically slotting abilities or slotting certain talents or traits that we might have had once upon a time. Because I do think that it's not okay for us to forget things, but I do think it's also okay to understand that, like, using humans, for example, we can only remember so many things. We can only memorize so many skills before we start falling off on certain things. So we want to try to specialize on certain abilities and traits and talents that we have. So in the context of WoW, I wouldn't mind if a lot of these pruned abilities, talents, glyphs, things like that were folded into some sort of system where I can slot that in and let that define my character. So that way, cool, I'm the paladin that just likes to stand there and I have like 5, but I can hit 5 targets with my shield and I get a dope ass bubble with it, but I'm not good at single target. I'm not good at bursts and stuff like that. So that's something that I would love to have, because it lets me not forget the kind of character I was at some point in time. but it doesn't overwhelm me with like too many things, and it won't make me feel like, okay, I have to have everything at the same time. I'm fine with not having that.
That sounds awesome. I guess that's what I miss the most, is not being very personalized. You're just like another cookie cutter.
Wait, so you like the cookie cutter?
No, I like being personalized. I miss that completely.
To be honest, I never felt, to be honest, well, I think what Nelia's getting at is, you know, back in once upon a time when we had major and minor glyphs,
talents?
when we had, the talents, I don't think.
Sorry,
in my opinion,
like trees, talent trees, like not talent rows.
Well, I admit that talent trees, talent rows, they both suck, in my opinion. They don't really help with the customization. It's just a dressed up thing. It just looks different. But anyway, I think what Nelia is getting at, so correct me if I'm wrong, major and minor glyphs, enchants, gems, stuff like that. I think those are things that help define the characters a little bit more. But in my opinion, I don't think customization in WoW has been... they're really conservative, in my opinion, compared to other games that let you freely allocate stat points, that have completely open trees that define your character from top to bottom, where you can have a literally useless character because you put all your points in stamina, but you can't do any damage. And, you know, so you're pretty much useless in all forms of content except for one thing. And, you know, that's the kind of customization that I would see in Diablo 2 or Path of Exile, or, you know, some other games that allow things like that. I've always seen WoW as very conservative when it comes to their customization, but I also think that it's gone a bit too far with limiting what I can do, because like I said earlier, I feel like when it comes to Azerite traits, I don't need to give a shit. The way that we play with heroic and stuff, as long as my item level is high enough, I don't think it matters what my traits are. I can function just fine without it. It's just a small bonus, or it makes life slightly easier for me.
And do you think that is a good thing or a bad thing?
I think that's a bad thing. Like, I would like to see something where if I don't have the right traits, if I have the gear with all the bad traits, it's fatal. Like, I am in a lot of trouble. So like, if we were to try and be a mythic guild, yeah, I'd be in a lot of trouble. But we're not quite there. But so that's what makes me feel like, Azerite traits are just soft. They don't do enough to define my character, at least coming from a tank perspective. It feels really dull.
It's not the same from a DPS perspective for some specs,
okay,
or class specializations and so on and so forth. But I think the majority of the reason why they do it the way they do is because there are players in World of Warcraft that just have no idea about what these traits are and what they do. They just read it, see what it says. Oh, that's cool. I'm going to click it. And there are players out there that like that who have like no idea whether these traits are good or bad for them, and they just use whatever. So if you were to pigeonhole somebody into like shit, need this talent in order to do well, like, it would hurt them. I know, and it doesn't really matter to them because they're probably not doing content that would require them to know what was good and what wasn't. But I think Blizzard just is conservative on that end. We're not going to even risk trying to confuse our player base. We're just going to stick to what is safe.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at with Azerite traits just not having much of an impact. I mean, like, I think you're more than likely right. You have a better perspective than I have with regards to like the different roles and classes and whatnot. I know one, and I know it pretty darn well, and I can tell you with good confidence that apart from mythic content and high end keystones, I don't need to care. And I think that it would behoove Blizzard to make it so that the choices that we make matter, or that they feel different. At the moment, at least as a paladin tank, Azerite traits don't make me feel any different. I can choose pretty much whatever I want, and the only thing that I would really notice is if I can hit either 3 people with my Avenger Shield or 5, but that's it. Nothing else really affects me.
What would you think if they did this with the Azerite traits instead of making it the way they have it, making it more along the lines of like, you're going to want to use this trait if you're raiding, you're going to want to use this trait if you're doing mythic pluses, or you're going to want to do this trait if you're PvPing?
It always depends, because there are, it's situational, not the situations that would require me to switch between traits wouldn't exactly be, oh, this is for raids or this is for Mythic Plus. It would be a little bit more specific. I know you're talking generally, but it would be like, oh, I'm going to take this trait because for this certain boss, he does this kind of damage, and so I think I need to prepare for that. I should probably have this sort of loadout on my Azerite traits, or this upcoming dungeon that I do, I know that I'm going to be taking it by myself. I'm going to have fewer healers, and there are going to be periods where I'm not going to get much incoming healing, so I should take this instead. So differences like that, those help, but they don't feel impactful enough for me to really give a shit at the moment. I just like overall what I want is just a system that follows you from level 1 to level whatever the fuck that they're going to give us in the next couple of years or so. I just want something, I want to learn an ability, and I want that ability to follow me towards the end of my World of Warcraft career. Whether it's going to be the button that's always in the same spot forever, or if it's something that I can at least swap out whenever I need to. I don't mind swapping out abilities like one bit, but totally forgetting it or being locked out of them, that's the kind of pruning that I'm not okay with.
I hear. Well, so one of my biggest things is like, what's the name of your weapon that you're wielding right now?
I forgot.
Nelia? Jim?
No.
What's the name of your weapon that you're wielding?
I mean, if I'm gonna cheat and look at the characters,
no cheating.
No cheating.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know. It's the gorilla.
I know where I got it from, at least, but I don't know.
That's my thing. Like I used to care about my gear, and I used to be able to tell you, in Cataclysm, like I had the Fangs of the Father. Like those were my weapons that I used.
That's not fair. That's a goddamn legendary.
Well, even then, like
I know the name. I'm not a rogue.
But I'm also a Wrath. Like I started in Wrath of the Lich King, so like. But there were times in WoW where people could know shit and name their weapon, the gear that they're wearing, and so on and so forth. That, like, I have a Mythic plus 10 chest piece from Freehold now. That's my gear that I know that I have on. I don't know the name of the gear set or anything like that from the dungeon.
I think that's just because there's so much gear out there to go get.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. I think that's the point that Senjien's getting at, is that there's so many different sources of gear because there's so many different activities that are relevant now. I mean, if back in Warlords, before Warlords, during like Mob and Warlords, when you effectively graduated from dungeons and you never really had to do them ever again, except for the case of getting those tokens or whatever. So you can, I forget what it was, but basically you can Valor Cap. You only did dungeons for that, or like resources. But yeah, you did say goodbye to stuff. In this case, you don't. Things remain relevant. So I get that there is something lost with the sentiment of, oh, I got this piece of gear. I've been wanting this motherfucker forever. It just feels like it's harder to find that standout item. I mean, I can say Arcano Crystal, and I think that there's a good number of people who may know what I'm talking about still.
But that's more of that was more of a stat stick because it was like. But yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah. There's just so much stuff, and it's so much harder these days to find memorable things because it was so rare to get those things.
I can't see your Arcano Crystal on you, but motherfucking Tusk of Manaroth. You know what I mean?
I do, because I'll support that shit.
Walking and wearing those, you're like, dude, look at this.
Yeah, I still get envious people being like, "Oh, you got the thing." I'm like, "Yeah, that's right, I got the thing, suckers. I've been farming that forever," and it's like, "Oh, so sad for you." Grats, man.
It goes beyond just like transmog, custom mana rock, transmog, but it's like, oh, you have this really cool mount from there, and somebody's like, oh, I've been trying really hard. And that's a lot of WoW too. It's kind of that status symbols, or not even status symbols, but like things people can relate about.
You don't really have that this expansion. You didn't really have that last expansion either. Hell, I don't even know if you had that in WoW. I mean, I guess the shoulders of Gul'dan, but that's like really was like a tiered set type thing. So
I know WoD
Maybe
was
the mythic versions of the mount. That would be the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, mythic.
It's just harder to see standout things, but to be honest, I think that's part of that's a symptom of this game is old. There's a lot of shit to get these days, and especially what we were talking about earlier, with the fact that you can get relevant items, potentially get relevant items anywhere if you just go to that Titan Residuum vendor and buy stuff. Or do a Warfront and things like that. I mean, I'll say, like, with regards to sets, I can speak a little bit to complete sets of gear. It's like, oh man, this one set, yeah, that thing looks dope, or, you know, and stuff like that. But that's more like a cosmetic thing. As for things with power, it's just hard because it's so hard for items to stand out, unlike the Arcano Crystal, unlike the Draft of Souls, unlike the whatever the fuck that Archimon trinket was back at the end of WoD, to like some of the legendaries that we get. So I mean, that's what makes items, that's what helps to make items stand out. It's
but where
really
is that this expansion? Like, where is that this expansion?
To me, it's the same place in Legion. Like, nowhere except except
well,
for
even
like
in
certain
Legion,
exceptions.
you had those legendaries. You're like, dude, that guy's like, you had your pride. You had, like, for me, my bracers. You know, like the bracers for a fire mage. I was like, yes, like I had like, do you have your bracers? You're basically a shit fire mage until you got those bracers, because that made or broke like fire mage. Like in this expansion, there's not a tier piece that kind of has that, or there are no.
But that brought about a different sort of toxicity, you know, like if some baddie that doesn't deserve to have those bracers has it and you don't, and you're like, motherfucker, I do like double their deeps and they got like the cool thing that I wanted. That was, to me, that was a different sort of toxicity and envy that Blizzard totally fell off on. Like I wasn't a fan of having so little control over these glyphs. As far as I'm concerned, like those legendaries were glyphs.
Well, no, and I'm like, dude, I'll be the first one to tell you that they were literally the last legendary I got for my fire mage were the bracers. Like I got every legendary that I could as a fire mage, and then that was the last one that I could get. I even got all the neutral ones before I got that one.
Yeah, the shoulders and the belt for Peace Mastery were basically the last two legendaries that I got. And they were best in slot.
Yeah, that feeling of envy, it's not something that I was fond of at all. Like as a raid lead, when I would hear when we down a boss and we, especially during like Emerald Nightmare, I remember, I forget which boss it was. It was like the 3 dragons or something like that.
Dragons of Nightmare?
Yeah. I remember like every time we would drop them, someone would get a legendary, and then from that someone would get pissed, and I'd have to like chime in and be like, dude, it's okay. The raid, this is for the raid. The raid is going to succeed. We're going to do better. You'll get yours. But I can only say so much because I have no control over how these damn things are distributed, except we just keep going and going and going. So, thankfully, that my playstyle decision of only playing as one character, like that paid off. But I was I was the least invested into my alt with Legion, and it's entirely because of legendaries. That shit pissed me off.
That's funny because I was the most invested in all my classes because of Legion.
Well, it's because for me, my motivations are very weak anyway. So I just don't have a lot of fortitude when it comes to my alts. Like if you look at my alts now, they all suck. They still suck too. I'm struggling to get them up, but that's for different reasons. I just don't have a whole lot of time. But during Legion, like I'd get on a character, it would be at max level, and I'd be like, I don't want to touch this thing because I can't do shit because I don't have legendaries, and there's no way for me as an alt to get stuff faster. I'm just gonna have to like grind my face in and hope that bad luck protection blesses me. And instead, like I ended up getting a bunch of legendaries off of my main because he was getting so many legendaries. He would get those tokens that would turn into like a thing. And so even now, I have legendaries that I can give to other characters. I just haven't done it yet because that just kind of ruined the alt experience for me.
But do you think it's much better now?
It's a different shit, you know. It's different shit, but it smells the same. I don't know if that's a good figure of speech, but there.
I don't know. I'd say. Sorry, I was just saying. I'd say legendaries were amazing in Legion. The implementation of the legendaries were bad.
I think they kind of eventually did rectify it. I mean, barely, but it eventually got rectified barely. But I think that having it so RNG was criticism that a lot of people had. I mean, people would be calling Legion the RNG.
I just couldn't get over the fact that a lot of these traits and whatever were major glyphs. So I just saw the system as these are major glyphs, but they are a big pain in the ass to acquire. And instead of a different UI that takes up glyph slots, these take up equipment slots, which adds a different kind of friction when it comes to wanting to manage your gear between legendaries and tier sets and trinkets and all that stuff.
Well, what would you have said if they stayed as glyphs, but they were still random? Like you only got these glyphs at random that you could utilize in these slots.
I would be. It's hard because off the top of my head, I think to myself, keep major and minor glyphs, but then add these legendary glyphs. You know, add another layer to it. But I would have immediate misgivings about it because that would make a single profession so powerful. But you know, even if it was an equivalent,
no, I mean like don't even allow these legendary glyphs to be crafted. Like they're glyphs that you like get dropped off of raid bosses or whatever or anything or random stuff like it. I'm saying like, is it just the fact that they're not glyphs or like that you had the issue because they were armor pieces and rather than glyphs?
It's multiple things because, you know, as a glyph person, losing that just made me feel less because now I can't have access to that sort of thing, or we lost a little bit of that agency because I liked that it was a separate thing and that gear and glyphs were different. In Legion, gear and glyphs were kind of the same with regards to like the effects that you can get from them. But no, I wasn't a fan that it was all based on a random drop. And I wasn't fond of the idea or the expectation that we would eventually get all of them. To me, that didn't make much sense because it pretty much communicated to me that if you want to feel useful on the most useful in your character, you got to get them all because your chances are in some situation all of them are going to be useful for something, which isn't entirely true, but that's just kind of the communication that sort of system gave me. As soon as they have like a whole UI that says, hey, here are the different kinds of legendaries that you can eventually acquire, that's a checklist, dude. and there are a lot of players that feel compelled to just complete that checklist, and I was kind of one of them.
I agree. I was the same person. Felt like you got these, and it was always like a thing where you just did things just to like you would be up all. I mean, for me personally, especially as we got to 7.3, I would be like up at weird hours of the day just to get the lesser invasion points done because they added a lot to your battle protection.
Right, because you got extra boxes from that stuff. Like I guess I would have been fine if there was some way to grind for legendaries. I'm not fond of currency. I think that's a bit too. It's a bit too inelegant. I would have liked something where there are certain slots on your artifact weapon or something like that, and you as a class, you would do like a class crafting quest or some shit like that, where you gotta work your ass off, farm a bunch of stuff, do things, and then you can slowly start building that sort of set. Let it involve everything: the player economy, going to all sorts of different world content, maybe dungeons and raids and group content too. I don't know, but something like that gives that sort of player the feeling that they're earning something, that that they are going in a certain direction and they're working towards it, as opposed to, well, I better hit up Mob Souls because I gotta grind that shit as fast as I can and get my AP grinding down and hope for some cool thing at the chest in the end. Yeah, not fond of legendaries overall.
Do you think the artifact necklace is going to have something similar?
It sounds like it. From the interviews that went on the other day, it sounds like there's going to be like an active trait that we'll get, a button that we'll press, along with passives, things that make us look cool. So I don't know what we're going to do. Like, am I going to throw my Heart of Azeroth like a grenade? Who knows? But I was saying earlier before you joined in, Columbo, that my worry is that we're getting this thing in 8.2, man. We're going to get an extra button in 8.2. So I'm not going to say Blizzard better do this, but actually, yeah, I am. So Blizzard better let us keep that button. Whatever it is that they give us, they're probably going to have to let us keep whatever we get, because if they don't, and if like we get this new ability and passive, and if it does feel cool, especially if it feels cool, if we lose that in a year, players are going to flip their shit.
Yeah, we had hard enough time with that with the artifact weapons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were carrying on about that stuff too earlier, about just the whole feeling of not getting anything for like so long. And me just trying to preach over and over again in different videos and stuff. It's like, dude, just give us some sort of system that follows us all the time. Like some sort of talent thing or something like that.
I will say this kind of as the opposing opinion. The thing about having like a part of ability that everybody has with the Heart of Azeroth, like throwing it like a grenade. Everybody can throw it like a grenade. It's cool on the surface, but overall, it feels uninteresting. Like artifact weapons had an ability, but there was one artifact weapon spec, and which was interesting, so it played into your class. Having something that you just throw like a grenade, in my opinion, is a little bit boring.
Well, I'm not going to get into speculating just what it is that we get. I have a feeling that it's going to be unique for whatever your spec is. There are certain things that are going to be generic. 10% more of your main stats. Whoop-de-doo. A concordance like trait. You get a shitload of versatility or whatever your main secondary stat is. That's something that I would expect to see, like, if they wanted to go that route, okay, fine. But I do have a feeling that when it comes to the active ability, it's not like everyone's going to get a grenade or a chest laser or summon a robot or whatever, although that'd be cool. But I do think that it's going to be something that's unique, depending on your class, or at the very least, depending on your class. I don't know if they're going to go as far as creating like 36 different unique abilities that make it seem cool and flow well with your rotation in the span of just a few months. I think that's a pretty lofty goal. But it wouldn't. But at the very least, having a ability that is based on your class would be something. At worst, roll. So as a tank, a healer, or a DPS. But anything more generic than that would feel, again, it would feel soft. It wouldn't feel very impactful at all, and I'd be pissed. Then I would be like, go ahead and take this ability back when I'm done with this expansion. Fuck it, give me something like way better, okay?
I mean, Ian said in those interviews, I read the highlights, that supposedly they're gonna try and transfer more mechanics that have to do with specific expansions forward, and stop doing like this specific mechanic only applies to this expansion. Now that it's over, we're removing it from the game, kind of a thing. So it would be nice to have some ability that has some foresight to it that we'll get to see in the next expansion as well.
I mean, overall, like I was saying this earlier, like I want to see a revamp of class progression overall. So, I'd love to see a progression system where I'm learning abilities from level 1 all the way up to level whatever the fuck. But then over time, as I learn more and more abilities, to the point where maybe I'm learning too many abilities, I'd love to be able to just swap them out. It's kind of like Diablo, just be able to swap stuff out, and so that I'm not forgetting the things that I do, but I can customize my character to tell that story and say, yes, my protection paladin loves throwing down Light's hammer. Because I like doing that. I thought it was dope throwing down Light's hammer and Holy Prism, and some of the and I think it would be cool to have some of those abilities back, because right now it's locked to a certain spec, and I don't think that's okay. I think that classes should have access to the breadth of their abilities via talent, via equipable skills and things like that. But to have them locked behind a spec, that don't feel right.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, I think the design choice to think of each spec as being individual, so you have like 36, total?
Yeah,
I think that's way too many for for a design team to try and like come up with new and interesting ideas about. I think it works better if you just have the 12 classes and then give them unique abilities.
I think, that would be that's definitely, in my opinion, like an expansion level sort of thing. That of course would take like a whole shitload of work to take care of. So that's why it wouldn't. I do wonder though, because traditionally we've been getting a new class like every other expansion. Whatever they're going to announce in November, it's like it's time. It's about that time for another class. What are we going to get? Is it finally going to be a tinker? And all that?
To be completely honest, I would actually be totally fine with not getting a new class if it meant that they focused more on like class and spec design. Because I just feel like that was where a big letdown was for a lot of different people with this expansion, especially when you removed the artifact weapons and all the abilities that came along with them. A lot of classes just felt kind of hollow.
Yeah, we had plenty to say. I mean, like things felt soft. These traits and whatnot, they don't feel like super impactful. Like I was saying that as a tank, I could probably function almost perfectly fine if I didn't choose any traits, and I just kind of left it alone. Like I could just rely on stats and not worry about it. The only real difference that I have on my spec right now is I hit one more target with my Avenger Shield, and that's it. Maybe like the bubbles will like make an impact, but then that's passive, and that doesn't feel fun for me as a tank.
Yeah, but there are plenty of artifact abilities or Azerite abilities that do change up your playstyle a little bit. I can only speak of the ones that I know of for Hunter, but I know Primal Instinct makes it so that when I use Aspect of the Wild, I get a charge of Bard Shot immediately. So that changes my thought process a little bit and makes it somewhat more interesting.
It doesn't
But
quite
out
have
of
the
all of the
oomph.
traits that there are, I can only maybe name one or two that have a little bit of interest to them.
Of Azerite trait.
For my hunter, yes, I can't speak
Yeah,
to the other
yeah.
classes because
No,
I don't
no,
know
I
them
agree.
well.
I agree. Like, at least for me, it's like the only trait I can actually name off the top of my head is Primal Primer, and that's because that's kind of there's kind of the main enhancement shaman build, and there's a shaman build that uses Primal Primer and kind of a few other talent. It kind of changes the talent around, and it's like it's really interesting. But yeah, it's kind of feels like certain. I don't know.
You're like super breaking out, Jim.
Oh, I am. Oh, my bad. I'm starting to again. Okay. I guess that'll be it for me.
All right, dude. Let me change
All right.
things up real quick and go back to the raid for just a little bit because we only glossed on it a little bit. There were some that had a question, and they were asking which boss felt like it had like the roughest transition from normal to heroic.
The roughest transition between the difficulties?
Yeah. I'm trying to think about it right now, so I need a second.
I'm gonna say Conclave.
Yeah, I would say either Conclave or Mechatork. And Mechatork not necessarily because of the mechanics, because they were basically this. But Conclave, for whatever reason, seemed like a pretty rough transition going from normal to heroic.
It was my fault. I think it was my fault.
I do have one thing. So is this in the regard of like from a DPS perspective? Because honestly, I couldn't really tell the difference. I could tell that from the guild as a whole, it going from normal to heroic on Conclave and Mechatork, it felt like people just lost their shit rather than the difficulty of the fight itself and the mechanics wasn't really all that big of a change. Like if you knew the fight and the mechanics, like it wasn't a hard transition, but the guild as a whole had a hard time doing everything together. Yeah, I'd say that
I would agree with that.
Coven and Mechatork, it was just like I felt like people just lost their minds. I was like, dude, this isn't that hard to get. Like either move when you're supposed to move or get in when you're supposed to get in. And it was just like people would just tunnel or they'd lose sight of what was going on because it was happening just that little bit quicker that it made it harder. But the fight itself, like as a ranged DPS, I didn't even know. I was like, why are people having such a hard time on these fights? Because it was like a joke as a ranged DPS.
I think that's why I ended up liking Conclave. That's why, that ended up being my favorite fight because it felt like a challenge. It felt like a challenging learning experience for the guild. I mean, when we were progressing through, like we would wipe in seconds mostly because of dumb shit. And then there were performance issues as well because either people were making mistakes or in my case, I was just getting overwhelmed and I wasn't able to handle it. Or I needed too many externals or whatever that it became a problem.
But that's also part of the puzzle of figuring it out.
Yeah. So, and that's always fun. That's why I approach. That's why I try to make people approach raids the way that I want them to just go in blind, and then we sort of figured it out. So it was nice and surprising at the very beginning of heroic, or at least that one time when Chad was like, "Hey, I heard that doing this boss on heroic first." The first boss on heroic is like really trivial, and then we got our asses handed to us, and so that was nice, getting that feeling in. But then once we started figuring things out, things became obviously much more manageable, where we can like goof around and just talk shit and still be able to get some stuff done until we get to the later bosses. But I'm certain that if we did do heroic blockade and Jaina like for the next 5 weeks straight, then we'll do just fine. We're not going to because of schedule that we have, but you know, we do get used to things, and that's something that I'm fairly grateful for.
I still think my favorite fight is Opulent. I think there's just a lot of interesting things going on with the different rooms. It's kind of like you're going like phase 1, phase 2, phase 1, phase 2. And I just like the overarching idea of like having to split the raid up, and that, you know, there's a lot of movement, and you both sides have to kind of do comparable DPS, otherwise the boss just despawns. And then once you get to that last room and everybody picks up their gem, then it's like a totally different fight when you're actually fighting Opulence himself. That's still my favorite fight.
I actually listed that when we started as my least, like, that was, to me, that was like the least interesting fight of the entire raid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's only because I, like, when you look at the fight as a whole, it has a lot of interesting things, but in execution, it just didn't seem all that fun to me. Like, I don't know. It was, for me, it was just another one of the, like, the loot boss from Siege of Orgrimmar, like where you split the raid in half and you're opening all the crates to kill all the ads and stuff. It was just like another one of those fights to me when we got there, except that we actually had an end person to fight. But what was it, like, take puddles out, stack for the rain thing, and then just like AoE the shit out of ads. It just didn't seem all that interesting to me. Mechatork was the most interesting to me.
Mechatork I found interesting as well. But I'd have to say my least favorite was Grom, because it's basically the giant sack of health boss.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's my. I didn't like. I didn't like Conclave because it was an annoying fight, but I do think Grong was probably the least engaging boss. It really felt just like we're there and you're just hitting, like you said, this giant sack of health.
It was kind of a tank fight between the different kinds of swaps that we had to do. Although I admit that it wasn't too interesting. It's like, okay, you know, first person takes it, second person taunts, first person takes it back, boom, make sure that they stay up and get thrown and all that stuff. That part of the fight I did like, you know, those little bits of coordination. It's like, okay, so hey, someone get on me so that we don't get feared. Hey, go ahead and take care of the robots. Hey, make sure you pick up the thing and use it on the boss when before his energy stack things get too high. Those parts, they were interesting on paper, but at least for a heroic guild doing it, once you have those little things figured out, there's plenty of room for there's so much room for mistakes that it feels pretty trivial once you have that stuff figured out.
I don't know, I can't say anything about like that Gronk being that way, because we literally did the first boss on heroic by just tunneling and not doing anything with the ads this week. Like, how less interesting can that fight get when you get to that point, you know?
Yeah, we couldn't do that when we started. We're only doing that now because we like totally outgear that particular fight.
But it was the same with, like, I mean, in the beginning with Gronk, when we were fighting, it was hectic, you know, until we figured it out. But like, even in the beginning with, I don't know, with Champions of the Light, it was like, you're fighting the boss, you turn, you fight the ads, and you turn back to the boss and you fight the boss. That was like the fight.
It's the first boss though, so I tend to always give a pass on the first boss. You know, you don't want to do like a Jaina kind of fight for the first boss. That's pretty discouraging for not for us. We're sick in the head, but you know, other smaller guilds that are trying to, hey, let's play video games together, boys and girls. Oh my God, Jaina Proudmore, we're gonna get our asses beat. This isn't fun. We quit. So first bosses I always give a pass for, even though I did think that it was boring, especially with the whole thing about just cheesing it with 3 tanks. That just made it like super dull for me. I'm just kind of like doing my thing. Yeah, maybe next week I'll or some other week, a non-achievement week, I'll be like, Chad, give me the other job. You can go to bed and do this fight and make sure to tell Tech to taunt. And that was the main mechanic for me. Tell Tech to taunt and then try to stay conscious enough to actually taunt it back and not let him die. And that was it for me.
Looking back when we started normal progression, I do remember us as a guild struggling more on champions than we did Brawl, going back to normal progression.
Yeah. I know that's because we weren't 3-tanking it. We were trying to do it like with just being Shad. And I don't think we ever quite figured out the best timing for when we should switch. And before we went with the 3-tank route, and then we're like, oh, that's it. Fuck it, we'll just do it this way. We just stuck with that.
And that's the point I'm making. Like, it was, if you don't cheese Mythic Champ, if you don't cheese a champion, it's a bit more engaging than Grong, where you can just standard 2 tanks, taunt off one another, and DPS hit the things, and heal everybody.
Now, I mean, I did feel just a little bit more engaged with Grong. Not by much, though. Yeah, not by much.
Yeah, it's probably perspective, just between the fact that, like, Jim and I are DPS and you're a tank.
Same thing kind of goes with what was the third? I forgot the name of the third boss. You know, the monk and
Jade Fire Masters.
Jade Fire,
yeah, Jade Fire Masters. Like, same difference with them. It's like there wasn't a whole. It was for us. It was the tank swap. Do the swap right, and you're fine. There's nothing else to think about. If anything, it was more a fight of directing you guys to make sure that we're not leading you folks into fire, to make sure that we're bringing the mobs together so we can cleave, so we can help max the DPS. That was the game for the tanks. It's not even really about, like, our performance apart from just staying alive.
That one was fairly interesting. I mean, I liked most of the bosses in the raid. Like I said, I have my favorites and which ones I didn't like as much, but that one I liked a bit. It was better on heroic, but I like the idea that, like, when the traps go out, people have to basically sacrifice themselves, and that was always interesting for me because I would be like, oh, do I have disengage up? Yes. Okay, I should step in that. Or no. Okay, I'll just wait for somebody else to get it.
Yeah. I mean, that part I find a little interesting in terms of, well, what if you have a really shitty comp and you just don't have anything that can soak that? Like, is there anything that's that a raid can, or is that scenario even feasible? I don't know.
I think you would have to be very careful of your placement.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I was thinking from the perspective of, okay, can I, like, stand in shit and, like, just take it and stay alive somehow? You know, is there a group comp where you just can't do it, and then you have to do, like as Nelia says, that you have to just place all your traps, like, perfectly in a line, and then after that, what happens during that phase when everyone has to navigate through that maze and get to the other side? It's like, oh, there's, like, traps all over the place. This is going to be excellent, you know?
Maybe the traps disappear, but we don't know.
Because we're all scared as fuck, or we wipe before we ever, like, really find out. But yeah, I actually didn't like Opulence very much. As a tank, it's direct the group. Make sure that the fire lasers are make sure that the mob is positioned in such a way that when the fire lasers are going out, that you give people clearance, and otherwise just do the right things to not get yourself killed. And that's it. And then the stuff in the middle, you know, actually fighting Opulence himself, it was boring because of the whole tank debuff thing. It was a nice, interesting thing, because what happens is you get that gem and you just take, like, half damage for a while. But then at certain points the gem just wears off, and that's considered the tank debuff. So it's like, okay, Shad taunt, and then he holds onto it for a little while until his gem goes on cooldown, and then I taunt back, and that's it. If anything, Shad definitely has more fun with that particular raid because he's yanking people in with his sigil. I'm slowing them down with my consecration, but that's like automatic, so it's just kind of not a big deal.
It could just be because I have the particular job of managing the crit buff that makes it stand out to me. Because like I can't stand next to anybody, so I'm having to like dodge mechanics while also keeping myself away from other people, so I gain stacks of this buff at proper times. Because we want it to go off with the ads, obviously, right? And then if it gets too high, I have to decide like how many people I want to step around, because if it goes down like 1 tick per second per person that I'm stood around. So like if it's going to come up too fast and come up at a time that the ads aren't up and I go to stand and well, then I'm like immediately going to miss the ads anyway, because it's going to go down like 20 ticks in 1 second.
I do enjoy fights where people can have like a certain specific and special role. Such as that's like, just like what Columbo's saying, or hey, I'm the person that is going to interrupt Grong because I want the parse, or I'm just good at staying on top of shit and hitting the interrupt button or so, or hey, I'll get the barrel, or I'll do the mind control. Those little things like that are what make me really appreciate some of the fights. And like overall, I enjoyed the raid. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely.
The
other fight that I can remember that's kind of like that is way back in like Warlords of Draenor and Siege of War. We had to have like somebody dedicated to jumping up on the moving walkway, and they had to like destroy the bombs or get them really close.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, Black Fuse. Yeah.
Black Fuse.
Yeah, Jim's
those kinds of things I always find really interesting.
Or
but I
Iron
agree yeah. But as a whole, I definitely think that the raid was really good. Like I said, I liked a lot of the fights. The Jaina fight is interesting. I think it has maybe just a little bit too much going on, but that could just be because we've only killed it like a few times now. I would imagine I'll feel different after we've got it like in a few more.
Yeah. Once we get, once the routine changes up, and with the new raid coming out, I'm sure that's going to change things a little bit too. I'm not quite sure how. If anything, the extra item level will help a little bit. The procs might have have you guys looked at the gear at all that's coming from that new raid?
I saw that one trinket. It drops for it has both strength and agility on it, but it basically takes health from your ally and heals you, allies and enemies.
Oh no, that's the I think that's the tanking one.
No, actually, I looked. It drops from enhancement as well.
Oh, does it drop for your loot spec? I mean,
yeah.
That shit sounds fun.
It does. It really
I do
does.
wonder. I do wonder if I can get people. I know it's not a lot of damage that people will take, but I do wonder if it can straight up kill people. I would be very fascinated if I can get people killed. Sorry guys, I was looking out for myself and I killed you all.
I mean, if they're low enough health, probably can.
Yeah, I haven't looked too closely at any of the items. I just have heard that the overarching design is basically like a risk-reward system. Very similar to Treacherous Covenant Azerite trade, where it's yeah, you might gain something, but you kind of have to give something up in return. And I think that could make for some interesting choices. And on nights where maybe we're going through and we're just hammering out heroic on farm, it could definitely make it more entertaining, right? I mean, in the same way that we're always stabbing Mary.
Yeah, it's if all of us happen to have that trinket, it's everyone pop it and see what happens. It'll be almost like a gamble because we'll be hurting the enemy, but then we'll be hurting some of each other, but we're also getting a heal. So it's almost okay, if we all press it at once, maybe someone will die. But it might not be as interesting as I hope it is. But yeah, we'll definitely be doing the raid. We'll probably on the first week we'll just try to crush it in normal and see if we can just get something for the sake of, hey, let's just have something to have something. Kind of get used to the environment and the trash and the fights, and then we'll probably just stick to heroic unless we're really struggling with that.
It's only 2 bosses, right? 2 or 3?
Yeah, it's only 2 bosses. So
it's smaller than Trial of Battle.
Yeah, so the plan the normal plan will probably be first raid night of the week, we'll go ahead and take that out because that has the higher item level stuff. we'll just do that, and then we'll proceed through BoDA with whatever, and then we'll just take like whatever characters. It's going to depend on how hard those bosses are, but I mean we're still going to have probably like another I'm going to say month or two at least of doing this raid while we wait for the next patch to come out and all that stuff. So at the very least, getting 2 extra bosses on top of the 9 that we're already dealing with, it's a nice way to kind of keep things a little relevant, or at least keep us entertained in the meantime.
Something I haven't really cared to check about, but are they doing the 11 week between patches like they did?
No, they abandoned that.
Are you sure? Because on that one quest that you do, you talk to Mother. Like when you go do like the Magni quest that came out with 815.
I recall that something
like,
77
77
cycles. Yeah. I do wonder like if that was just meant to be a joke. I mean, if it does come through like that, then hey, cool. I'm not going to question it. But if it doesn't, then I'm just going to write it off as, oh, that's just a joke that they were a tongue-in-cheek sort of thing.
Yeah, I think they were. I mean, I personally, I'm not going to speculate. Feels like it.
But I do at the very least have faith that, yeah, they are going with this sort of regular cadence of, hey, every couple months there's going to be like a little bit of something coming in. Although I do wonder, like, if I would prefer to have something that's just a lot more meaty, but I'm willing to wait longer for it. I just don't.
Isn't one of the raids or dungeons supposed to be that way in the next big patch?
Yeah, Mechagon is supposed to be like Karazhan, pretty much.
Like Return to Karazhan.
But again, I do wonder, like, because I remember when Return to Karazhan first came out, there was like me and Senjien was there. I think Jui and Tech and one other person. I don't remember who that was, but we went in and we did the whole thing because back then it was bottom to top, and we're like, all right, let's do this. And we were there for like a couple of hours and we're wiping on like everything, but we got through, and it felt fun. It felt fun going through like an old / new dungeon for the first time, and going through the motions there. So I'm looking forward to Mechagon, at least running it that one time for the sake of the adventure of, hey, let's go through. But I'm never too fond of like farming stuff over and over again. Like I like doing it because I get to hang out with the guild and everything. But as personally as a player, it's like, okay, yeah, I really want to do this thing over and over again for gear that I'm going to swap out in a couple of months. I don't get that sort of value out of MMOs.
Man, I agree. And it was AJ, I think, that healed for us that dungeon.
Ah, okay. You sure it wasn't Joey that was healing?
I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure AJ was there because I want to say he freaked out when we jumped down during the Huntsman and like pulled all the trash, and we were like freaking out.
Oh yeah. That was my idea, wasn't it? I was like, hey, let's see what happens, guys.
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen? We'll just wipe. Yeah, we wiped. Oh man.
It's good times.
I still haven't even gotten like the mount from there yet. I've just been way too lazy to like jump back in and do it.
Yeah, me too.
You have the dragon mount?
The Nightbane mount, the updated Nightbane thing. Yeah. I haven't bothered with something like that. So we've been talking for like, almost 2 hours now. So let me get to something heavy, to kind of wrap things up. Do you guys think you're gonna last at the end of the expansion, or do you guys think you're gonna last with the World of Warcraft, or are you frightened or scared, or are you planning to move on at some point?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that I'll be here till the end of this expansion, but like, I've been one of those people who plays for an extended period of time and then takes a break for like 6 to 8 months and then plays for like a year and a half or two and then repeats that cycle. And over the past few years, like now that I'm getting older and closer to being done with school, I've definitely felt like my time playing World of Warcraft is coming to somewhat of an end. Because I mean, I've only got like a couple of terms left to college and then I'm going to have a degree.
Woo!
And I intend on having kids in the next couple of years as well.
Yeah, but
So
they are pretty good with like getting you herbs and all that stuff. So
Yeah. Fishing.
yeah, dude, fishing is a bitch, man.
Yeah.
Why not?
So I mean, I'm gonna be around for the foreseeable future, but like I don't know. I try not to think too far past like a year ahead of where I am now. So
how about you, Jim?
Inevitably, I mean, looking from a somewhat cynical point of view, I think inevitably there will be a point that I'll get burnt out and might need to take, like Columbo said, an 8-month break or so. I mean, I really do like WoW, and even before I started playing it, I wanted to play it to see what it was like. But like, I think that what did I say? I think that I don't want to get burnt out, so I see myself continuing to play for the foreseeable future. I can't make any predictions beyond a certain point.
Senjien.
For me, man, it's probably gonna be, as long as there's a POW, I'm probably gonna be on this game as frequently as I'm always on.
Well,
It's just I mean, you've seen how I play this game, and as long as I have people to come online and like do things with, then most likely I'll stick to it. Even if I didn't, I've invested a lot of like time in the lore and everything. I'd still play it just to see what's going on.
that is a very good point. I mean, usually when I end up taking breaks, it's because either the guild I was in fell apart or something of that nature. It's a lot easier to log in, and there's a higher desire to do so when there's like actually fun people to hang out with.
I agree with
fun
that.
people
actually,
like who? What?
I don't know.
do agree
These
with
guys
you.
are pretty good.
So we usually, you'll see, man. Even like, I think it was the craziest when it was at the end of WoD, where the guild was still logging in every Tuesday and Thursday to do Hellfire Citadel.
Yeah, that was a long stretch. I mean, Legion's gap, but the gap between Legion and BFA, it was a lot shorter. But I'm still surprised. I was shocked. I was like, dude, we've been doing Hellfire Citadel for like a fucking year, and people are still getting on. We still have enough people to keep going. Like I think apart from like holidays and things like that, where we knew that a hell of people weren't going to show up, we showed up. We were on. We were doing stuff, and I was like, "Holy shit! You guys have no lives. What's wrong with you?" But I'm here too.
I don't know. I made a lot of good friends playing this game. I mean, my wife and I actually took a trip like to this area in Canada, just outside of Toronto, to meet people that I was in the guild with a couple of years ago, and then like the summer after. Stuff like that comes up. That's what keeps me playing more than anything.
No, I'm with you. Like, I don't know when you guys started playing, but I was here since day one. My sub never lapsed. I'm one of those guys with the statue and all that stuff. It's like fucking loser. But it wasn't long, and it wasn't long after I was in PoW that I was like, I don't think I want to do anything else aside from like this. I like being part of a guild. I like having a team. I like having a home that people can look back years later and they can be like, holy shit, that guild is still there. I'm like, yeah, bitch, we're still doing stuff. You gave me this guild, girl. Like, cause this guild was originally run by this one girl. And then she just kind of said, fuck it, I'm done. Here you go. Take care of it. And it's going to be 12 years, this BlizzCon. 12 years of Prisoners of Warcraft. And I think so far it's kind of living up to its name. So one day the guild may collapse, and no one will be left. And from that, I don't know what I'll do. I don't know if I'll be able to mentally handle that, because just like what Senjien was saying, like part of my dependence here in the World of Warcraft is the guild that I helped to cultivate over this many years. And if that goes away, there goes not just the investment that I went into this character, but then there's all the friendships that I've made with all of you guys, the people that I've met and everything. That's something that you don't really get in game. This just happened to be a vehicle that led me to it.
I will say this, as one of the newer members of the guild, I think it's an interesting experience. I actually enjoy being with a bunch of active people because this is the first raiding guild I've actually been in. every other guild I've been in.
Yeah, some standards you have, jeez, dude.
Yeah, I know, right? but I just want to say it's what probably keeps me playing this game. Oddly enough, I think I probably, if I wasn't in the guild, I probably would have let my sub lapse a few months ago. But it feels good to be part of something.
Yeah, the guild has grown to that sort of point. I was talking with Mary and AJ like yesterday. I was just chatting with them, and they were talking about Final Fantasy. It's like, oh, it's fun and blah 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 blah, and there are certain issues with WoW, but at the same time, I'm here still playing the World of Warcraft because of the guild. And they even said, okay, yeah, even though Final Fantasy is fun, like the rating is like, we don't see ourselves playing it like, forever, because it just doesn't have that same sort of feeling, and it doesn't have PAL. So I'm like, yeah, bitch, fucking this guild overcomes bad gameplay. It sounds weird to say, so let me rephrase. This guild can weather the storm. That's something that I have confidence in. It withstood demonstrably bad practices, and I still think that Warlords was way worse of an expansion overall than BFA. I didn't do shit in Warlords. I just kind of sat here and made hella money, and that was it. But we still logged on. We showed up. We raided all the time, and we had fun. And when we cleared it, we got on alts and we did it again and again and again. So that's something that I super appreciate. And I know I'm rambling too much. So
tell me about rambling. But I agree with your assessment on Warlords. I always think it's so funny, and I mean everybody's entitled to their opinion. But I always think it's so funny when somebody says this expansion is worse than Warlords. And it's like, okay.
All right, let's wrap it up with a quick lore thing. I don't know if all of you are too invested into it, but Team Sylvanas or Team Saurfang? Jim, you first.
Come back to me on this one.
Motherfucker. Columbo.
Do I have to pick one of those two?
Yep. Yeah. You must choose. You must choose.
If I have to pick one of those two, it'll probably be Saurfang.
All right, Senjien?
I would pick Sylvanas because Saurfang is a fucking bitch trader.
Back to you, Jim. He's still thinking about it.
Yes, I'm just gonna have to say Saurfang because I'm a tool who wants the Horde to become more like the Alliance.
Ew, gross.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, Sylvanas all the way, dude. Not even because I'm like a fan of Sylvanas, but just I'm so not a fan of Saurfang. I think he's a bitch. So that's my take.
I'm so anti the Orcish Horde honor concept thing that it's so wishy-washy. I don't even want to, I don't know. I hate it. I hate that whole ideal of honor causing so many, it's the dumbest way to fight. Sorry, but it's the dumbest way to fight.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, and I think at the Battle of Lordaeron, Sylvanas made an excellent point that honor means nothing for the dead. And the Horde, in my opinion, has always been about has always been about the ruffians kind of surviving together. And like, you can have these ideals of honor, but in a sense, honor is a little bit overrated.
Yeah, but no life is worth living if we can't be true to our nature. I remember that quote from Bane, but then I think about, well, what about Sylvanas? How does she respond to that? She's like, oh, you want me to live by my true nature? You got it. Have this drink of, blight shit and all that.
Well, my thing is also, like, they all think about this whole, like, death would, like, honor and death and everything. Like, Sylvanas is, like, one of the few people that actually, like, they've experienced it. You guys don't know what you're talking about. Like, she's died, seen how it was, and has come back from that. Like, she's the one with the experience.
Yeah, I'm actually a little empathetic with the whole idea of, fuck that, I know what it's like. I want to live forever, bitch. It's way better. It's way better than the other side, bro. You don't want to go there.
Yeah, and I'm going to say, and furthermore, Sylvanas' first death as Ranger General of Silvermoon was an honorable death. So she really could go to that whole thing of honorable death, because she died fighting basically a battle she knew she was going to lose for the sake of honor. And what did that get her?
Was it for the sake of honor? I don't know. I don't know how elves really feel about honor.
It's probably different from, if it is maybe not honor, but it's something similar. It's an elvish equivalent. I mean, she knew that, I guess, how would I say it? That she knew that she wasn't going to survive this battle, but she still wanted to basically fight to the end, even though it wouldn't be as victory.
I mean, she's a bad bitch. She's doing awful shit, but I at least kind of get it. Anyway, I think we're done.
Oh yeah, I get it.
I get it too, yeah.
Honestly, probably more of anything, what it is that secretly, ever since I've been playing this game, I've wanted to be Alliance, but everyone I've ever known has been Horde. So
really, see now I got to hold off. See, all my friends were like, "Hey, so you want to play, World of Warcraft?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I'm playing right now." They're like, oh, cool. What server are you on? Oh, I'm on this server. Like, oh, you should join my server. Okay, well, what faction? Oh, we're Alliance. I'm like, oh. All of my friends played Alliance, and so they're no longer my friends. We just, I mean, it's not like I don't like them. It's just that we didn't share that commonality, and that just kind of cascaded into, well, I guess we don't talk anymore.
Yeah,
fucking Alliance.
I never actually got around to playing it. I think my highest level tune is like 40 something. But if I'd have given the choice, and everyone would have I definitely would have chose that faction.
They're okay.
I know on my initial account I played Alliance back in BC. I mean, I think I played on a Horde heavy server, so like it was PvP. So I get pretty shit on by Horde, but I don't know. I think in a retrospective, I think the Horde has better races, in my opinion. I like the Horde diversity more than the Alliance. Like, you have these whole jokes. You have humans, short humans, even shorter humans, purple humans, humans with hoods, wolf humans.
I just did not like the look of humans back in those days, and I mean, they look way better now. Cool. But the damage has been done. It's just way too late. Anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this up. This went way longer than I thought it would. But I appreciate you guys joining me. I know that you joined a little bit late, Columbo, and I know that Nelia I saw the message from her, and she headed it out a little bit early. But thanks again for joining me, you guys.
Thanks for having me.
I'll make sure I edit this very well and make myself look really good. So
okay.
You guys have a good one.
There's going to be a lot of editing.
Yeah, I'll see you guys.
Head off too. Good night, everybody.
Later.